Good morning, YouTube. This is Obsidian Anubis, and I'm here with my fifth ninth age battle report. So this battle report is one of a three-part series of a campaign where the Lizardman player is attempting to obtain 3 plaques. So the fluff behind this battle is long ago, a plaque was stolen from the Lizardman home area. So in 8th age, Lustria, 9th age, I'm not sure what they're calling it yet. But so yes, this ancient magical plaque was stolen from Lustria by the Empire. And once it was taken back to the Empire, it broke into 3 fragments and was kind of scattered across the world. So a Quaxalord has long been meditating on obtaining this plaque, and for the longest time he hasn't been able to locate it because it's been broken into 3 fragments. But finally, he has figured out where it is. So he sent 3 different forces to all 3 of the locations to obtain the plaque. So he opened a portal, sent through an army, and then wants them to return to the port, bringing them the piece of the plaque. So by the end, they'll have all 3 pieces of the plaque. So for this particular battle, how it is the plaque is hidden in a cemetery, and we don't know exactly where it is in the cemetery, so my opponent has to search through the cemetery to find the plaque. For the campaign, if my opponent or if the Lisbon player obtains all 3 pieces of the plaque, then it counts as a major victory for the Lizardman player. If they obtain 2 of the plaques, then it counts as a minor victory for the Lizardman player. If they obtain 1 plaque, then it's a minor victory for the Empire, and if they obtain none of the plaques, then it's a major victory for the Empire. So let's go ahead and look through the armories that my opponent brought. So the Lisbon player brought 10 Skink Braves with full command, and with them is a Skink Priest, level 2 of Wilderness with his spell scroll. You can kind of see him just at the bottom of his cloak. Next to them are 5 Skink Hunters. Next to them are 3 Cayman with a great weapon, and in that group is a Cayman Ancient with a great weapon as well. Behind them are 15 Saurian warriors with full command, and in the front left is a Saurian veteran with the Axe of Battle and the Stegodon helm. And on my opponent's right flank is a Spearback and another group of 10 Skink Braves. So my opponent didn't go into too much fluff riding for his forces, so that's what they were. For me, I wanted to be a little bit more fluffy with it, I guess. So I have 10 heavy lancers. These lancers have full command, shield, and lance. Next to them are the Bali State Militia. There's 25 State Militia with full command. In the center of the board, I have the 42nd Regulars, which is just a group of 40 heavy infantry with halberds and full command. And in the front left of that, I have a captain, Pericles. He is my BSB. He has plate and shield, and he is the hero sword. Next to them are the Hogue State Militia, which are just 10 skirmishers with bows. And to the right of that are my 95th Rifles, which have the Sergeant and the Long Rifle, which is the guy with the red hat. And in that group is my General, which is Democrates, level 2 Wizard of Heavens, with the Tome of Arcane Lore. So the fluff for the Empire is the Magic Council has sensed this kind of portal that has opened up into the Empire. So they've sent Democrates to go investigate what this portal is, if it's chaos or something trying to enter into the world, or what's going on. So Democrates took this small group of force to go investigate what that magical abnormality was. So if we look at the battlefield, you can see that there's kind of like 5 pieces of terrain in the center of the battlefield. There's the 3 buildings, the statue, and the gate. So how it works is the plaque is hidden in one of those 5 objectives, and we don't know which one it is. So my opponent can search the objective by moving up to it and then sacrificing the rest of their turn. So not casting spells, not shooting, or whatever with that unit, and they can search it. And then my opponent rolls a d6, and if it rolls a 6, then they found the plaque. And if they haven't found it by the time they get to the last building, then it automatically is in that one. So for spells, I had Blizzard, Thunderbolt, and the Stars Align. And due to the nature of the campaign, my opponent automatically got the first turn. So Saurian Ancient, turn 1. So for movement, my opponent just kind of moves up, marching both of the Skink Brave groups up to the 2 different buildings on the left and the right there. The Cayman actually didn't quite make it up to the statue, so they can't search it this turn. And the Spearback made it up to the gatehouse, so they can start searching that. For magic, my opponent rolled 7 power dice. They threw, I think, 5 at the Curse of the Wildwood on my knights, and they miscast. I went ahead and let that through because I wanted to have them maybe sucked into the void, and it ended up putting 1 wound on the caster and killing 3 of the skinks, but they passed the panic test. And then no shooting because everybody had marched, and in the end of the turn, my opponent rolled a 6 at the gatehouse, so a spearback actually has found the artifact. So it's just that little blue bead that you can see. So I was hoping it would be a little bit closer to my side, so now I have to march all the way across the battlefield, but oh well, if that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. So Empire of Sonnstahl turn 1. So for movement, I declare a charge with my halberdiers and my knights on the Cayman. My halberdiers make it in, my knights fail, and I lose 1 due to the dangerous terrain of the Curse of the Wildwood. Movement-wise, I just kind of march up my Bali's militia and my Hogue's militia. For magic phase, I roll 6 power dice. I throw, let's see, I think 3 at Stars Align. My opponent dispels it, and then I throw 3 at Blizzard on the Cayman, and my opponent can't dispel it. So the Cayman have -1 to hit and -1 leadership. And then in close combat, I declare a challenge with my sergeant in the unit because I'm touching the one of my opponent's characters, so my opponent has to accept. I put 1 wound onto the Cayman character actually, and then the character Cayman kills my sergeant twice over. I put 2 more wounds on the unit, and my opponent kills 3 of my halberdiers. So I did 3 wounds to my opponent. I have 3 ranks, 2 banners. My opponent did 5 wounds back to me, so my opponent loses by 3. The leadership 7 because of the blizzard with the -3, so they needed to roll a 4, and my opponent didn't roll a 4. So they break, I pursue, and I catch, and I overrun into the skink hunters there. So that was the end of Empire Sonnstahl turn 1. So I think at this point my opponent was kind of taken aback by how quickly the Cayman had died, and I agree with my opponent that they're a strong force, but against such a block, they'll probably get a break just because due to combat res alone. So I think my opponent was a little underwhelmed or underappreciated that the Cayman needed. They're a good unit, but they need to be used in the right format. And in this case, it just wasn't in the way for my opponent. So turn 2, Saurian Ancients. So this is what the board looks like after movement. You can see that the yellow skink braves at the bottom of the board, they now have the plaque. My opponent transferred it to that unit, and you can kind of see the little reflection in the unit. Other than that, my opponent didn't really move too much. The skink braves on the other side of the battlefield, on the top of this picture, moved just kind of away. Kind of they want to just get away from all my shooting and just kind of have like a line of sight with a magic. For magic, they had 3 power dice, which they were just in range to cast Curse of the Wildwood, so they threw all 3 dice at my halberdiers, which they got off, and I couldn't dispel it, so my halberdiers now have Curse of the Wildwood. In shooting, the spearback shoots at my Bali's militia and kills 2. And then in close combat, I kill the skink hunters, I wipe them out, but in return they kill off 1 of my halberdiers. I elect not to overrun, because I have the Curse of the Wildwood, or do a combat pivot, so I just kind of hold there. So Empire of Sonnstahl turn 2. So I charge my Bali's militia into the spearback. It has to hold, or it has to do a stand and shoot. It stand and shoots, and I think goes 2. My knights reform to bring the skink braves into their line of sight. And on the left side of the board, my archers just kind of move around so I can see the skinks. And my halberdiers elect not to charge. I decided that I'd rather receive the charge of the Star Warriors than charge and lose like up to 1/3 of my unit because of the Curse of the Wildwood. So I like just to hold. For Winds of Magic, I rolled 10. So with that, I thought I could get something off. So I throw a couple dice at Thunderbolt to try to drop some power dice on the skinks with blowpipes. My opponent dispels it. I throw most of my dice on Stars of Line on my halberdiers. My opponent uses the spell scroll. So then I didn't bother casting, I think, Blizzard because it was out of range of the Saurian Warriors, and that was the only unit that really needed it. So that ended my magic phase. So kind of a sad magic phase for having so much Winds of Magic. In close combat, I do 1 wound to the spearback, and it does, I think, 2 wounds back to me. But because I have 3 ranks, a banner, I charge, I easily win in combat, but it sticks due to cold-blooded. Turn 3, Saurian Ancient. So my opponent marches the skinks as braves as far away from my knights as possible. They actually are still in my front arc though. My opponent couldn't quite get out of my line of sight. My opponent also charged the Star Warriors into my halberdiers, so I just held and took that. And then my opponent also tried to do a quick reform with the skink braves in the left of this picture, and they failed the leadership test, and so they just pivoted, unable to move. For magic, my opponent rolled 10 power dice. I believe they rolled through 6 or so at Beast Within on the Star Warriors. I dispelled that with all my dice, and then my opponent threw up Curse of the Wildwood on my knights, and I couldn't dispel that. In close combat, my Bali Militia easily wiped out the Spearback, although actually I shouldn't say easily. I think I did 1 wound to it, and it did a couple wounds. It did 2 wounds back to me, but because I had 3 ranks banner, it broke and I wiped it out. Actually, this brought up an interesting topic that I think the 9th Age might want to discuss, is if somebody does more wounds to you in close combat, that should maybe make them stubborn. So, because even though my opponent killed more of my militia than I wounded it, it wasn't stubborn because I had so many ranks and it easily, like, it needed, I think my opponent needed 2 1s to hold. So that's something that they may want to consider, that is if something does more wounds than its opponent, it counts as being stubborn. I think this will also help for like characters who like on dragons or wyverns who charge in the combat. They do 5 or 6 wounds, but because the unit has so many ranks and banners, they end up losing. So that makes them something where if they cause more wounds in close combat, then they're considered stubborn for that round. So just some thoughts. In the major combat, I killed 4 of my my opponent's Star Warriors, and my opponent killed 9 of my halberdiers, so not quite an equal trade. Unfortunately, my captain missed every attack this turn, so that didn't help at all. But I was steadfast because I had still 1 more rank than my opponent, so I held. So turn 3, Empire of Sonnstahl. So I declared a charge with my knights on the skinks. They fled, but didn't run off the board. I lost 2 of my knights due to the dangerous terrain because of the Curse of the Wildwood, so that unit's slowly getting whittled down just to the terrain. In the center of the board, my Bali militia started kind of moving around the gatehouse. Excuse me. Because of that, I couldn't really charge my opponent's flank because of the stupid gatehouse. So I was trying to maybe work my way around it and then come in from the rear. For Winds of Magic, I rolled 11 power dice, so I'm like, yes, my opponent doesn't have a spell scroll, I can get some spells off. So first I throw up Lightning Bolt on this Skink Wizard group. I failed to spell it. I failed to cast it. Okay. I throw most of my dice at the Stars Align on my Halberdiers. My opponent dispels it. Okay. I throw the rest of my dice at Blizzard on my opponent's Stars Warriors. I failed to cast it. Darn it. With 11 power dice, I didn't get a single spell off. That's very sad. In shooting, between my gunmen and my archers, I managed to kill the skink priest and the rest of the skink unit except for 1. That 1 skink brave panics and runs towards the edge of the board. And I won't take a picture of it, but it never rallies and it runs off the board. In close combat, this was a sad turn for the Empire. I rolled so bad. I had, I think, 23 halberdiers attacking. I think I hit twice, and my opponent failed both of those. And then my captain killed 1, which is where my opponent got the 3rd wound. So, but with 23 attacks, 2 hits, and I think actually I wounded twice. I think both the times I wounded, I went all the way through. I hit twice and I wounded twice. But out of 23 dice, I think only 2 dice were 4s and 5s for the first roll, and then they both rolled 4 or 5s for the second roll. I mean, well, we can do the statistics. 23. My opponent's BS is 4, my BS is 4, so I should statistically hit half of those, so it would be 11. Toughness 4, strength 4, so I should hit half that, so I should hit 5.5 or so. So on average, I should be doing 5.5 hits, and I did 2. It was sad. Luckily for me, I did break my opponent's 2nd rank, so I still have 1 more rank, so I was still steadfast this turn. but if I don't start killing off Stars Warriors, I'm going to lose this combat. Alright, Saurian Ancient, turn 4. My opponent rallies the Skink Braves over here. And other than that, my opponent doesn't have any movement. They fail to rally the other remaining Skink, who had been with the Wizard, and he flees off the board. Because there's no Wizard, there's no magic, so we go straight into close combat. And yeah, my Halberdiers whiff again, and they break. My captain's still alive, but he doesn't have his banner anymore, so you don't really see him with the rest. I do get away though. My opponent chases and fails to catch, so at least I have that going for me, maybe. Empire of Sonnstahl, turn 4. Movement-wise, I fail to rally my Halberdiers, so they keep fleeing. My knights charge the Halberdiers. My knights charge the Skink Braves with the plaque. They hold, because if they didn't, they would flee off the board and lose the plaque anyways. My Bali State Militia start working their way back around, and my Archer Hogue's militia kind of turn to face the Stars Warriors. Winds of Magic, I get 9. I think I throw up the Stars Align on my Halberdier. No, wait. I think I threw it on my Knights, and my opponent dispelled it. And then I throw up Blizzard on my opponent's Stars Warriors in case they get in the combat. And then I think I failed casting Thunderbolt again. In close combat, my Knights charged in. I killed 4. My opponent killed 2, which is actually pretty good since I needed 1s to fail. So let's see, I killed 4, I charged, banner, so that gives me 6. My opponent killed 2, so they fell by 4. Leadership 6, the Skinks easily fail the cold-blooded test. I chase them down and wipe them out and gain the plaque. And my opponent gives up at this point. So for the first battle of the 3-part campaign, the Empire hangs on to the plaque. So my opponent is no longer able to get a major victory. So they can still get a minor victory if they get the other 2 plaques, though. So again, technically the battles are happening simultaneously. So my opponent, the Lizardman doesn't know that they don't get all the plaques until the end of the game. But me and my opponent will only play them, probably every weekend. So it'll probably be next week that you see the second battle report, and then the third will be the week after. But overall thoughts, yeah, it was a pretty fun game. I think my opponent took too many characters. I think my opponent realized that too. I think they should not have brought that Cayman character, because that severely was a point drain, and then it didn't end up doing anything. So I think my opponent kind of blamed herself for that. And then I think that instead of having a large group of Cayman, maybe my opponent should have had smaller blocks of Skinks, like 8 Skinks with 1 Cayman, had like 3 or 4 of those blocks. So that way they had the numbers with the Skinks and still had some fighting power with the Cayman. And I think that might have worked out a bit better for them. But I think overall they were just outnumbered in this battle. And so I managed to just outnumber them and kind of overwhelm them, which is something surprising for my Empire, because if you have seen my previous battle reports, usually I'm the one which is outnumbered. I also didn't bring artillery for this battle, which was kind of a unique thing for me. I forgot to mention that for each of the battles, I have some limitations on what I can take. So does my opponent, but my opponent's really is just that they can't take a Cruxer Lord. Well, I can take most other things, but in this battle I couldn't take any priests, and I couldn't... Actually, I think that was the only one. I couldn't take any priests for this one. For the next battle, though, it takes place at a chapel. So the next piece of the plaque is actually inside a chapel. And so for that one, I have to take priests. I have to take flagellants. So it kind of changes my army list a little bit, is because I'm restricted to, I have to have at least 1 unit of both of these. I can't have some of these units, which kind of gives my opponent, I hope, a little edge. So that way they have a little bit of more of a fighting chance. So the next battle is going to be a 1,500 points. So this was 1,000. The next one will be 1,500. The third one will be a 3,000. But yeah, that's all I have for this battle. If you guys have any comments or saw if I made any mistakes, please feel free to write those in the comment section below. Also, if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me on my 9th Age, on the 9th Age forum. Other than that, then, yeah, have a good weekend, you guys, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.